All right, everybody, man, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out, man. And it's been a crazy day. I'm only going live really because I had a whole show that I did, man, like 50 plus minutes of a deep dive, all chaos into the SWAC men and women's championship races. And for whatever reason, my mic wasn't working, my phone not really my internet connection on my phone ain't really being what it's supposed to be. So man, I'm going kind of old school with this. I'm on the computer. It ain't the best quality, man, but I wanted to bring y'all a little something. So I'm just going, man. I'm just gonna do what I did, man. I'm gonna try to do similar show to what I did earlier, where I kind of talked about the different scenarios in the SWAC championship races. And just taking wild guesses, man, to have a little fun with this because we are in the last couple weeks of the season. So I just wanted to go ahead and put something down, man, bring something to y'all. Um, I didn't really want to re-record, but I just wanted to put this out so whenever y'all check this out, y'all can have it tonight and tomorrow early, whatever. So I just wanted to go ahead and put something out. So that's why I'm here. So I'm back again, I guess you could say. And like I said, I apologize for the quality of the camera, but my internet is acting mad shiesty on my phone, so on the computer. But let's go ahead, man. As y'all can see, the socials are on the screen as usual. You got the Facebook Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76, email swagtalk76 at gmail.com. And man, we're not gonna waste too much time. We're just gonna jump right into this. I'm gonna start with, as you can see, as the banner says, this is only my attempt at predicting the women's standings and seedings at this point. I'm gonna do the same thing for the men. Just so you know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read down the standings, and I'm gonna break down the seedings, and then I'm gonna talk about who can move up, who can move down, where they seem to stand at this point. There's between 3 games and 4 games left for each team, depending on who's played their travel partner yet. So there's still some big games, man. I think honestly, I think a lot of these races are going to come down to the last weekend, which I think is next Thursday and Saturday, and the tournament starts on Wednesday, March 9th. So basically, 2 weeks from now, we'll be at the SWAC tournament. So hey, let's jump directly into this. So we already know the number one seed in the women's side is Jackson State. Hey man, yeah, it's a surprise, man. Like I said, I had a whole thing done, and it my mic was muted or something, and my computer been acting stupid. So I just wanted to kind of bring y'all a little something, man. Just because. So like I said, JSU is the number one seed in the women's tournament. They are, at least at this point, they clinched a share of the SWAC championship. But we all know that they probably won't lose a game this regular season. And for the sake of my experiment, I'm gonna push them on through undefeated, so they will most likely be SWAC champs next week. Probably after Monday, after Saturday's game, they'll officially be SWAC champs in the regular season. So that's out. We don't even have to worry about number one. Right now they're 14-0, 16-6 overall. Alabama State is second place, 11-4, 12-12 overall. Alabama A&M 10-5 and 12-13 overall. Texas Southern 10-5, 10-12 overall. Southern is 9-5, 11-14 overall. Prairie View is 9-6, 12-14 overall. Grambling 7-7, 10-15 overall. UAPB 7-8 and 11-14 overall. BCU 4-11, 5-19 overall. FAMU 4-11, 4-12 overall. Valley 2-13, 3-20 overall, and Alcorn is 1-13 and 2-19 overall. So, in case you don't know, the SWAC is taking the top 8 teams on the men's side and the women's side to the tournament. So, basically, Bethune Cookman, FAMU, Valley, and Alcorn, they are out. None of them really can honestly probably catch up without any kind of weird scenarios taking place. So, for the sake of what I'm doing, we're Xing them all out. So that would mean Jackson State would be the 1 seed, and they would take on UAPB. Alabama State would be the 2 seed. They would take on number 7 Grambling. Uh, Alabama A&M 3 seed. They would take on number 6 Prairie View, and number 4 TSU would take on number 5 Southern. So let's kind of look at how things, if we wanted to say if somebody could jump up or move down, let's see how some things would shake out. Alabama State, like I said, right now they are the 2 seed, and they are sitting pretty right now. They face Alabama A&M on the road on Saturday, and then they close out with Southern and Grambling at home. So that's a pretty tough slate. They have the number 3 seed, number 5 seed, and 6 seed, with 7 seed coming to them, other than the trip to Alabama A&M. So they will be a factor to wrap up that number 2 seed. If they can win at least one of those games, I think they put themselves in a good position. A 2-1 finish would put them at 13-5, which would probably cement them in a top 3 seed. And to me, you want to be 2 or 3. You want to try to avoid Jackson State as long as you can. I mean, I know it's a tournament, so you want to kind of face the best whenever, but you want to kind of give yourself a chance to build some momentum too. So if you can not worry about the number 1 seed till you get to the end, then that's a very good look for you. So Alabama State, like I said, if they can finish with a 2-1 record out of their last 3 games, then I feel like they wrap up that 2nd seed. They beat Alabama A&M, then I really think they're in really good shape. They will have swept Alabama A&M if they win the game on Saturday. They already have 1 victory over Southern, and they also have a victory over Grambling. So they're sitting in a very good spot. They are a team that somebody's gonna have to beat, and Southern's gonna need them to lose a couple of times to avoid a tiebreaker with them, because they own a tiebreaker over Southern, and that game next Saturday will be big for seeding purposes. Alabama A&M is the 3 seed, and they come on strong the last few weeks. They have a finishing schedule of Alabama State at home, Grambling next Saturday, and then Thursday, Grambling, Saturday Southern. So they have a nice opportunity too to make some waves. Right now they are 1-0 against Texas Southern, 0-1 against Southern. They are 1-0 against Prairie View, and they're 0-1 against Alabama State. So they have some ground to make up against Southern. That's a big opportunity for them to even up that series. They really need to beat Alabama State to give themselves a chance. If they lose that game, that drops them already to 6 conference losses with another couple tough games at home. So they could easily see themselves dropping from 3 to, let's say, 6. Roughly, that's just an estimation. But they can see themselves dropping if they don't close out strong. It's important for them to win as many of these games as they can, because they don't have a lot of margin for error, being that they don't have many series edges on anybody that they face, and they already are playing the team that's ahead of them in the standings this week coming up. So this game Saturday, big game. I mean, it's a big game anyway. It's Alabama State, Alabama A&M. It's a big game anyway, but a lot on the line. If the Bulldogs can pick up a victory, then they put themselves really in a good spot to finish in that number 2 seed with Southern and Grambling coming to town next week. TSU is a team that's very, very hot right now, man. They score the ball, man. This team is one of the highest scoring teams in the conference. They get up and down, they score. I don't really, I don't think they've been getting better weekly, but I don't think they take care of the ball as much as they should. But they have scores, man. They're gonna put points. They crossed 90 points a couple of times this year. They've been in the 80s a few times, and they're a very dangerous team. I saw them play early in the season in SWAC play, and that team from then to now is almost like night and day. So they're sitting at that 4th spot. They play JSU on Saturday, so that's a tough opportunity for them. But they have Alcorn, which is a winnable game, and Prairie View to close out the season at home. So they have 3 home games, and like I said, you really just can't automatically write off a game against JSU. I mean, obviously, we all feel like this team is pretty much top of the line, but anything can happen in a game, especially late in the season. But they need to finish these last 3 games 2-1. If they do that, that puts them at 12-6. which is, like I said, that keeps them in the mix. If they was to find some kind of way to pick up an upset, then they will finish at 13-5, and that can honestly get you a 2 seed. But I think they really their range probably is 3-4. I don't really see them going below 5 unless it comes to some kind of tiebreaker situation. So I think they are in good shape. Like I said, the closing schedule is not easy as far as Jackson State. Prairie View's a tough team. You know, they kind of they have some ballers as well, so that's gonna be a tough game. You know, it's a rivalry. Prairie View took an L to Texas Southern already, so they're gonna want to get back in the mix. In that, looking at some of the matchups with Alabama with Texas Southern, they're 0-1 against Alabama A&M. They only played them once. They're 1-1 against Southern. They're 1-0 against Prairie View, and 0-1 against Alabama State. So not a lot of tiebreakers for them. So they really are gonna try to have to take care of business and win a spot outright, so they don't end up in any real tiebreaker situations. Southern is a team that's been up and down the last couple of weeks. They actually are coming off of a 3-game win streak. They were sitting at number 2 in conference for the bulk of the season. Then they took a loss to Alabama State, and they kind of just started reeling, and they haven't really been able to get anything going. Finally got a victory against Grambling, and now they find themselves moving from 2 to 5. Now this team can get themselves back in it if they play consistently on offense. Defensively, Southern's defense is very solid. They definitely get their hands on the basketball a lot, and they force a lot of turnovers. And they love to play, with high intensity on defense. Offensively, their shooting is up and down. If they're hot, then they can be a big factor. If they're cold, sometimes the defense can bail them out, but other times they just, really can't avoid hurting themselves, shooting themselves in the foot, especially at the free throw line. But Southern, they closed out their season with Bethune Cookman on Saturday, FAMU on Monday, and then a trip to Alabama to face Alabama State and then Alabama A&M. That's a mixed bag of a schedule. You 2 teams that are pretty much out of the SWAC tournament race, and then you have 2 teams who are in the thick of finishing in the top 2 or 3 teams in the conference. So they need to win as many games as they can, and I know that goes without saying. Anybody can say, that you need to win games. I mean, that's just point blank period. But for Southern to have a successful opportunity to put themselves into a good spot in the tournament and stay out of that 4 or 5 hole, they probably need to go 3-1 at minimum. 3-1 puts you at a 12-6 finish, and that keeps you in the mix of a 3 spot. Now, will they get there? That's gonna be tough to, you can't count out any other 4 teams on their schedule, but if they can find a way to win 3 of those 4 games, they may find themselves in a good spot. Playing 2 teams ahead of you is a very valuable thing if you're trying to move up the standings. That's the easiest way to move up the standings, is to beat people in front of you. And they have 2 teams that are in front of them that they play. Now they're on the road, so it's going to be a different thing, and they already have a loss to Alabama State, but they did beat Alabama A&M. They have a 1-1 record against Texas Southern and a 1-1 record against Prairie View. So they don't own a lot of tiebreakers. Really, right now, Alabama A&M is the only tiebreaker that they own. So they need to try to put themselves in a position similar to Texas Southern, put themselves in a position that they don't have to have a tiebreaker. They need to take something outright. And like I said, you want to try to get that 2 or 3 spot, stay out of that 4 or 5 hole. Because to me, a 4 or 5 matchup, 8-9 in the big dance, those teams are always typically very similar. They typically, if it's a conference, they typically have split their series, and they typically match up in certain ways. So you want to kind of stay out of that, because you don't really want a dogfight before you go to your second round opponent if you're a 4 or 5 team and you're going to run up against the best team in the conference in the next round. So I think the fight is to stay out of that 4 or 5 spot. And right now, if Southern goes 3-1, they should find themselves out of that spot, because if they can, especially if they can take one of those Alabama, if they go 3-1, they're going to take one of those Alabama teams. So if they can do that, then they put themselves in a better opportunity to finish in a higher spot. okay, now we're looking at Prairie View, who is 9-6, and they're still in that mix for that spot, for a higher spot, because the difference between second place and sixth place is only 2 games. Alabama State is 11-4, Prairie View is 9-6. So there's only a 2-game difference. So that's not an impossible task, depending on what else happens in other games. But they also have JSU left on their schedule and a road game against TSU. So their schedule is not easy closing out the season. Alcorn is a game. Alcorn is the last place team right now. I mean, the SWAC is topsy turvy. You never know who can beat who, but right now, that game, should be what it is. But they do have two teams ahead of them on the schedule. So you split those and you beat Alcorn. You finish 12. You finish 11-7. That's a pretty good spot. You should be able to finish at least 5, depending on what happens in front of you. So to me, they are in a decent spot. Like I said, I think they can move up a little bit if they can pull off a couple of victories. If they beat TSU, that gives them a split in the season series. They do hold a 1-0 record against Alabama State. They're 0-1 against Alabama A&M, and they're 1-1 against Southern. So they do have an opportunity against TSU to make some room to kind of close some gaps, but it's going to be kind of tough with that JSU game sitting there, and then TSU on the road to close out the season. Grambling is 7-7, so they're a little bit further out the pack. They probably won't be able to move up too much further than maybe 5 if they can win out. If they win out, that makes them 11-7. And that's a pretty good spot for a mid-pack finish. But they, like I said, they have the Florida schools this weekend, and then they go to Alabama for 2 games. So those Alabama games are huge. Like I said, same thing with Southern. You could say with Grambling, those games are huge. You really need those games to kind of keep yourself in the mix. If you want to make a move, you need to beat people in front of you, and they do have that opportunity against the 2 Alabama schools to close out the season. So I feel like a lot of these races won't really be settled until you get to the last weekend. There will be some movement this week, but I don't really think you're gonna fully know until you get to the end. So all of this, is very fluid, and like I said, I don't really see a lot changing this weekend. 8th spot is UAPB. They're pretty much in. Even I think if even if they lose out, I still think they're in, because I don't see any other the other 2 teams that are 9 and 10. I don't see them winning all the rest of their games. So I think UAPB is solidly in at the 8th spot. They close their season with Valley at home, and then they go to Jackson and Alcorn. So if they go 2-1 in that stretch, that puts them at 9-9, and they're solidly in. They're probably the most cemented team into their spot outside of Jackson State. They could, I don't think they could, find themselves in a better spot if they were to pull off an upset, which they did give JSU a run for their money at home earlier in the season. So that's not out of the realm of possibility that they could find themselves in a game that they might be able to steal a W toward the end of the season. But I think if they can go 2-1 in that stretch, they finish 9-9. That's a solid spot, and they pretty much are wrapped up in the 8th spot. Probably can't move any higher than 7. So not a lot of movement there. Like I said, I can see them and Grambling maybe flip-flopping, or Grambling moving up a spot if somebody kind of cools off in that mid range. But I think you won't see the bulk of movement on the women's side until the last weekend, because like I said, that's when you get Southern and Alabama State, Southern and Alabama A&M, Grambling and Alabama State, Grambling and Alabama A&M. Those all those games are huge for standings. So I don't really see a lot of movement taking place this week. Alabama State, Alabama A&M is huge. That's probably the biggest game this week as far as standings goes. So I would keep my eyes on that game. I would still keep my eyes on, TSU, JSU, just because to see if TSU can, get their offense on track against JSU. Maybe they can give them a run at home and you know, maybe they can make something happen. But they have an opportunity the next week, the next day, on Monday against Alcorn to pick up some steam and send themselves into the Prairie View game with a nice little bit of momentum. But I don't really see too much really changing on the women's side this week. So not an eventful situation, but I think there's a lot of chaos coming later. Not as crazy as the men's side. The women's side is a little bit more cut and dry. If Alabama State takes care of their business, then they are the 2 seed. Figuring out that 3 to 5 range or 3 to 6 range is gonna be some maneuvering, but I don't think it's gonna be nothing too outrageous. 7 and 8 are pretty much who they are and where they are. Not gonna be a lot of movement there, and like I said, the other 4 are pretty much already out. So the women's side was not that difficult. Um, we're gonna jump over to the men's side, and like I said, I'm not gonna be on here too long, man. I just wanted to get on and do a list something. So um, just to kind of make up for the show I had, man. I had like almost an hour worth of stuff. I don't have that in me right now, so we're just gonna kind of run through the men's bracket, and this is the definition of chaos. I'm gonna start off by saying the men's side, I could easily see a SWAC champ with 6 losses. I'm old. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but the possibility of it happening is legit. There is no team that is head and shoulders above everybody else. Everybody who makes the tournament has a good chance of winning the tournament. I really think that that right now until we get to the tournament, I don't really think we have odds-on favorite. I mean, everybody who makes it honestly has a chance to win. Um, so from number 1 to number 8, all have a legit chance of getting hot and winning this tournament. So the key to me is to just get in. I won't, if you're a fan, whatever team you're a fan of, they can finish first. You really want that so you can keep that NIT bid in your pocket, just in case you're not familiar. If you win your conference regular season and you're losing your tournament and you're the number 1 seed regular season champ, you get to go to the NIT. So that's a tournament bid in your back pocket. So that's like a get out of jail free card. So your season won't be over if you get upset in the tournament. Orange juice, can't beat it. All right, let's start off at the top. Texas Southern is sitting in first place alone after some topsy turvy action last week. TSU is 11-4, 13-11 overall. They have a half game lead over Alcorn and Southern, who are both 10-4. Alcorn's 11-15, Southern's 15-11. Alcorn has the tiebreaker over Southern because they beat them in their only head-to-head matchup. So that's important as far as tiebreakers go. Grambling is only a game out. They're 9-5, 11-15 overall. FAMU is only a game and a half out. They're 9-6, 11-15 overall. Then you have Alabama A&M is 8-7. They're 3 games out, 9-16 overall. Prairie View is not 8-7, 8-15 overall. Jackson State is 6-8, 8-17 overall. Alabama State is 6-9, 7-20 overall. Bethune Cookman 5-10, 7-20 overall. Pine Bluff 4-11, they're 6-22 overall, and Valley is 2-13, 2-23 overall. Now, Valley is pretty much that Valley is out. Honestly, there's no way that Valley can catch up to anybody. The 8th place team right now, if they lost all their games, they would finish with 11 losses. So Valley can't catch them. So Valley is out. Pine Bluff is basically on the edge of being out. Mathematically, they're still alive, and I had figured out some scenarios to get them in the tournament. And I talk about them just for shits and giggles, but Pine Bluff is, they're teetering on the brink. The next loss they have is gonna pretty much knock them out. But I'm gonna, just for the sake of all the stuff I wrote down, I'm gonna keep them in it right now. Bethune Cookman they're 2 games out of the last spot. Well, they're a game and a half out of the last spot, and Alabama State is a game out of the last spot. So realistically, you have 10 teams still in the mix, 11 with a hope and a prayer. But right now we're gonna talk about basically everybody but Valley. We're gonna see where we stand, and this is a mess, man. Like I said, I don't think there's any team who is head and shoulders above everybody. Everybody can win at any time. Everybody can lose at any time. All teams, I think, have their flaws. They all have talent. Everybody got talent. You got guys like MJ Randolph from FAMU who can score the ball. Even though they're not a good team, you got a guy like Sean Williams at Pine Bluff that can score. You got Strawbridge and Warren Rayner off the bench at Alabama State. You got Jalen Johnson and Garrett Hicks at Alabama A&M. I'm just naming whatever guys, man. You got TSU with a balanced attack. You got Javarius McKinnis at JSU. If he's healthy, he's a monster. Southern got a couple guys, Tyrone Lyons and Jaden Sadler. Alcorn got their guys. Everybody, Gambrell at Prairie View, man, the dude's a shooting machine. It's just like I said, man. There's so many guys on every team that capable of taking that team to 3 games and three wins in 3 days and getting in the tournament. So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. So we'll start with the top spot right now. TSU is sitting in that spot this week. They were able to win that game on Monday, which put them in first place all alone. So they faced Jackson State on Saturday. Jackson State defeated them when they played earlier in the season, but they're tough at home. They've only lost one conference game at home, so they're not an easy out at home. They also play Alcorn, which is a very, 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 very big game on Monday. That game can really, really impact the championship race. The loser of that game is going to find themselves in a really tough spot, especially if TSU can beat Jackson State on Saturday. They put themselves in a good spot to really keep themselves in the mix for that top spot. If they beat Alcorn on Monday, they close out with Prairie View, which is going to be tough. They beat the Panthers in Prairie View, but Prairie View is a team that I would say, if I had to pick a team to say that I don't want my team to face in the tournament, it's Prairie View, man. I know a lot of people looked at that 0-2 start and really was like, they not that good, but that 0-2 start was because they did not play. And then they were kind of, iffy the first few weeks after that, but they're starting to find their stride and they are dangerous. So, if you run into them in the tournament, you're going to have a fight on your hands. So you really, if you can avoid them, you should do so. But if you have to go through them, then you just got to go through them. That's just the way a tournament works. But TSU has a really tough slate of games. The last 3 games are not easy. If you look at their records against some of their close opponents, they're 0-1 against Alcorn, they're 0-2 against Southern, they're 2-0 against Grambling, and they're 1-0 against FAMU. So they have a couple tiebreakers, but the 2 teams that are immediately behind them, they don't have a tiebreaker against those 2 teams. So they really need to avoid a tie with Southern or Alcorn to give themselves a chance at a better seeding. So they need to win outright. If they were to go 3-0, they would finish 14-4, which would give them at least a share of the championship, depending on what Southern does at that point, which we'll talk about in a minute. But that victory over Alcorn would go a long way in helping TSU win the SWAC championship. And you can say the same thing about Alcorn, who's sitting at 10-4. They have 4 games left. They have the Texas trip, which they play Prairie View on Saturday, TSU on Monday, and then they close out with Valley at home and then Pine Bluff. So that's 2 games on the road that are really tough, and 2 games at home that are they can be dicey. Valley is a dangerous team, especially a team like at this point in the season, they don't really have much to play for. They shoot the ball well. They have not been blown out a lot. They've been in a lot of games. They found ways to lose these games, but they always are in the mix. Like I said, they've been blown out maybe 3 or 4 times all year. So that's not an easy out. If you find yourself, in a battle, then you can find yourself losing the Valley. Valley does have a victory over Prairie on the road. So that's, they can win. They've been in a few overtime games. They had a 4 overtime game against Alabama A&M. So they can score. They can shoot. They're not the biggest team, but they're scrappy. and they can give you trouble. So that's a game that Alcorn really gonna have to try to navigate. Pine Bluff's an enigma. They either gonna get blowed out or they're gonna be in the game. They have some guys who can score, but they lack focus at times. So this is not an easy stretch for Alcorn, but this is a situation that I think they can navigate. If they, to me, the worst case is going 2-2. That puts you at 12-6, and that would probably put you at like 4 or 5. So you want to kind of, you know, you want to finish as high as you can. Now this tournament, now this side, the men's side, I don't think it matters really where you finish, because like I said multiple times already tonight, there's not a team that's head and shoulders above anybody. So the number one team is gonna have at least 4 losses. So that means that number one team can be beat at any time. So it doesn't matter. Maybe you want to catch them in the second round after they come off of a tough first round game if they make it. So, you know, the way the men's side is, the 8 might give the one a dog fight. So you really want to, maybe you want to be that 4 or 5 team and catch them in the second round, licking their wounds. So we'll see, you know, what works best for each team. But to me, you're not really trying to avoid anybody, but you know, you want to finish as high as you can just for confidence and everything. Moving on to Southern, they're 10-4 as well. Like I said, half game out of first. Their schedule: Florida teams at home, Bethune Cookman on Saturday, FAMU on Monday, at Alabama State on Thursday, I believe, and then at Alabama A&M on Saturday. So not a hard slate, but Southern's been a team that, you know, they play. Sometimes you don't know what they're going to give you, but defensively, they're typically going to keep themselves in games. Offensively, they can have some lows, and sometimes they fall in love with threes. But when that defense is clicking, they're one of the toughest teams in the league. So I think they can navigate their schedule. If Southern was to win out and go, you know, 14-4, and TSU went 14-4, Southern would finish tied with TSU, and they would finish first. If Southern finished 14-4 and Alcorn finished 14-4, then then Alcorn finished 14-4, then Alcorn would get the 1 seed because they beat Southern the one time they played them. To me, a realistic thing would be Southern either going 2-2 or 3-1. If they were to go 2-2, me personally, I would prefer the 2 to be the home. I mean, of course, you want to try to win road games, but winning home is just important to me in basketball. So 2-2 would put Southern at 12-6, which probably would put you anywhere between 3, 4, or 5. So that's a tough spot. Like I said, you won't, if you finish 12-6, you won't finish any lower than 5th because the 6th place team already has 7 losses. So you're not, at least if you're Southern, you won't be able to lose more than I guess if you lost all 4 of your games, you could finish 10-8. But I'm for the sake of my argument, I don't think they're gonna drop all 4. I don't think they're gonna go 1-3 either. But it's possible. Obviously, when you do the math, it's possible. But right now, for the sake of my argument, I'm gonna keep them at least 2-2. That gives you a 12-6 record. That keeps you top 5 in the conference. Southern, they are 2-0 against TSU, 0-1 against Alcorn, 0-2 against Grambling, which is big for Grambling in case they find themselves in the tie with Southern, because they're sitting at the 4 seed. So if they find themselves in the tie with Southern, they got the tiebreaker. And then right now they're 1-0 against FAMU, who they play on Monday. Grambling is 9-5. They're only a full game out of first. So the way I keep saying, multiple times, with 5 losses or better, can win this conference. Grambling sitting at 5 losses. If they were to win out, they would finish 13-5. TSU drops 1 game, then Grambling at least is sitting in a decent spot. They are 0-2 against TSU, so they really want to try to avoid that tie with TSU to avoid the tiebreaker. They're 1-0 against Alcorn, they're 2-0 against Southern, and they're 0-2 against FAMU, who they play on Saturday. So they have an opportunity to put some space between them and FAM if they can beat them. The Alabama games are going to be huge for them. They lost to Alabama State. They beat Alabama A&M. So they find themselves in a decent position. They beat Bethune Cookman, so they are in a situation right now where they're playing teams that they went 2-2 against the first time they played them. So if Grambling finishes at worst 2-2, that gives them a 11-7 record. I don't really think Grambling's gonna finish worse than that. Now it's always possible that they could lose 3 games or all 4, but at this point I don't really see that. 2-2 puts them at, like I said, 11-7. 3-1 makes them 12-16, which keeps them in that top half. 12-6, like I said, should keep you at least no worse than 5. So if Grambling can go 12-6, they'll finish at worst number 5, maybe 4, depending on what some of the teams ahead of them do. They could bleed into a higher seeding, depending on if anybody else falters. They close out their season, like I said, with the Florida schools and then the Alabama schools. So a nice mix of teams. They have a few teams fighting for some spots also that are playing them, but they don't play anybody ahead of them. So it's going to be hard to make up ground on your own without playing people who are ahead of you. FAMU is number 5, and they're 9-6, 2 full games out of first place. They have 3 games left. The Louisiana trip at Grambling on Saturday, at Southern on Monday, and then they host Bethune Cookman to close out. So they lost to 2 out of the 3 of those teams the first time they played them. Lost Bethune Cookman and Southern, and they beat Grambling. So if they do the same thing and go 2-1, that gives them a 10-7. Excuse me, that gives them an 11-7 record, which keeps them 6 or better. So you want to, I think, worst case scenario, I think, is 2-1. 1-2 is possible because that's basically what they went against those 3 teams the first time they played them. So 1-2 makes them 10-8, and that can put you anywhere. Now 10-8 can put you anywhere from 6, 7. I don't know, 8 is possible, but it's probably not probable. So if they finish in with a losing record in this 3-game stretch, then they'll find themselves further down the standings. But they're pretty much entrenched in that mid-level spot. They probably won't get higher than 4 unless some craziness happens. But they are pretty much cemented in that 4, 5, 6 spot. So they are not a lot of change should happen with them, no matter what they do. Alabama A&M is 8-7, and they close out their season with Alabama State at home. They host Grambling and then Southern. They lost to all 3 of those teams, I believe. So this is a tough spot for them. At home, you expect them to play better at home. They have all 3 of those games at home, and they've been tough at home. They did give Grambling a dogfight on the road, no pun intended, but they don't always have the most consistent offense. They've been winning a little bit more lately. They found themselves in a pretty good spot at this point. So if they were to win 2 of those 3 games, that puts them at 11-7, which, like I said before, that keeps you in that 4, 5, 6 range. If they won all 3 games, they won 2 games, that put them at 10-8. If they won all 3, that makes them 11-7. If they went 1-2, they're 9-9. So 9-9 pretty much has you on the edge. So you 9-9, 9-9, you could almost end up out. If they were to lose all 3 of those games, they would finish at 8-10, and that would probably be out. To me, I think a 500 record or better gets you in the tournament. Maybe 8-10, but it's going to depend on a lot of factors. So if anybody who I'm predicting ends up with a losing record in conference, I think you can go ahead and X them out. So Alabama A&M is probably one of the few teams that can rise decently and drop a lot with these last 3 games on their schedule. So it's important for them to win all 3, or at least win 2 out of the 3. 1-2 is kind of iffy. If they lose all 3, they're out of the tournament, unless the people below them also lose a lot. So they're dependent on a lot of things to take place if they don't do well at the end of the season. Prairie View is 8-7 as well, and they close out, like I said, hosting Alcorn, hosting Jackson State, going to TSU. Not an easy slate, man. That's really tough. But they are in the mix. They're 1-0 against Alabama A&M, and they're 0-1 against JSU, who is behind them right now. So they have a chance to beat two of the teams that are at the top. They win all three games. They're 11-7, and like I said, they're firmly in the middle of the pack, and they're in a very dangerous spot. If they lose all three, they're 8-10, and like I said, 8-10 might put you out. So to me, 1-2 spot is 9-9. I think 9-9 you're safe. 9-9 is probably an 8 seed, maybe a 7. But right now 9-9 is probably an 8. So finish 9-9, you should be in. You should be safe. But like I said, this is a tough 3-game stretch. They only beat one of these three teams the first time they played them. So not an easy slate. Two of the three are at home, so that helps a lot. But they're similar to Alabama A&M that their fortunes are so tied into what they do. If they don't do what they need to do, then there's no real saving them because they're on the brink, and pretty much everybody makes the tournament is probably going to finish with a 500 record or better. So that's one of the things that I think that you really need to be aware of is that you don't want to drop any games. I mean, obviously that goes without saying, man. We got Jamie G in the house. What's up? Um, just running through these little scenarios and seeing what's up. Just looking at my crystal ball and making up some things as we go. But just like I said, that brings me to number 8, JSU. And this is a team who can be dangerous in a tournament setting. Defensively, they play defense well. They are not the most consistent offensive team, but they have some athletes. And if they can get in the tournament and get a couple games under their belt, then you never know where they're going to end up at. This is another kind of team that I would not want to face if my team is iffy, because you get them an opportunity, they can get hot and they can play pretty good defense. So that's always a recipe for disaster. If you're a team facing a team like that in a tournament setting. Right now they're 6-8. And they are on the line. They're a half game ahead of Alabama State, so they can go any way. And like I said, they have that 2-game Texas trip. It's gonna be tough. Those 2 games are tough, and they close out with Valley and Pine Bluff. So they could easily go 2-2, which would put them at 8-10. I said 8-10 is probably out. So that's a tough thing. Like I said, I keep saying I think 9-9 is where you need to be. So if they can go 3-1 on this last 4-game stretch, then they're 9-9 and they're in. Because I don't see the only way that they would be out at 9-9 is if Alabama State went 3-0 in their last 3 games and finished 9-9, and they have the tiebreaker over JSU. So that's the only way I think a 9-9. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say. That's so for a 9-9 JSU team to finish out of the tournament is if they were to finish tied with Alabama State. We got my boy Country in the house. What's up, D? What's happening? Welcome. Like I said, hope you're enjoying this chaos tour I'm taking through the SWAC. So Jackson State, like I said, anything less than 9-9, they are out. So they need to go. They need to win 3 out of the 4 games to keep themselves in a spot. If they win 2, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna depend on what the people below them do. So they, you don't want to have your fortunes tied into other people in this situation, especially with your qualifications to the tournament hinging on your games. Number 9 is Alabama State. Like I said, they're 6-9, and they are, on the outside looking in. It's gonna take a 3-0 finish for them to probably make the tournament. If they finish 8-10, and JSU finishes 8-10, then they get in over JSU. If they finish 8-10 and Prairie View finishes 8-10, I think I want to say let's see, I want to say they beat Prairie View, but I gotta go back and do some research on that. They did beat Alabama A&M once. They played them again on Saturday, so their schedule, just like Alabama A&M, they play each other on Saturday. Then they play Southern and Grambling. So they beat Grambling in Grambling, and they beat Alabama A&M, and they lost to Southern. So they still have a dangerous team, man. They can score. They have some good guards. They have some firepower off the bench. They have some nice big men as well. And Mo Williams is a fiery coach, so I wouldn't count them out. But going 3-0 is basically the only way I see them getting in, unless something crazy happens and they finish tied with somebody at 8-10. So not a lot of wiggle room for Alabama State, but there's still some hope. And it's not impossible, but it's tough. Bethune Cookman is 5-10, and they're pretty much out. But like I said, crazy things happen. They're gonna have to finish 3-0 in their last 3 games to even sniff the tournament. That puts them at 8-10, and like I said, 8-10 means that they have to finish tied with somebody. They're 1-1 against JSU. They're 0-2 against Alabama State. So if they finish tied with either one of those two teams, they're probably out. Once you get past the head-to-head tiebreaker, there's some other things that come in the mix. I think records against the higher seeds on down. So it's going to depend on other factors. If they finish tied with JSU at 8-10, if they finish tied with Alabama State at 8-10, they out because of head-to-head. So not a lot of room for error for Bethune Cookman. They play Southern on Saturday, Grambling on Monday, and close out with FAMU. They went 1-2 in that 3-game matchup to start the season. So it's gonna be tough. They can, they've been playing decently this year, up and down, and they have, guys like Joe French and Garrett and Kevin Davis. They have some guys that can score, but they don't have a lot of depth, and I think that hurts them, especially on the road. So they, they have to win all 3 games to get themselves any sort of a chance to make it. And that's a tough ask for a team that hasn't really had a lot of win streaks. And 2 of those 3 games, and really all 3 of those games are on the road because they closed out at FAMU. So they have to go 3-0 on the road and hope that teams in front of them lose. It's a lot, to ask, but I felt like throwing them in there because I just wanted to cover as many bases as I could. And I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I just wanted to throw them in there. So speaking of glutton for punishment, I threw Pine Bluff in there. They're 4-11, and I don't. When I really was sitting there looking at everything and I was throwing things together, I was like, oh, they got a shot, but man, they don't really have a shot. If JSU would have to go, if JSU went 0-3 in, excuse me, if they went 0-4 in their matchups, they finished 6-11. They're probably going to be out. So no matter what happens with Pine Bluff, they're probably out. I mean, they went 4-0. They finished 8-11, and excuse me, they finished. If they go 4-0, they finished 8-11. That's not right. What is wrong with numbers? Yeah, it's late, man. Y'all forgive me, man. These numbers are like confusing me right now. I'm having vertigo from numbers, but if they finish 4-0, then something's not right. Yeah, I'm really tripping right now. But they won't make it. Let's just leave it at that. They won't make it. It's getting late, man. My brain is fried right now. So it's gonna be tough for them. They're gonna have to win out. And they're gonna have to find a way to sneak in. So I don't really see that happening. It's just an opportunity that they missed. They had a couple games get away from them. They had a tough loss to TSU. They were down by 20 and they lost by 1 or 2. So they have a few games like that they probably could look back on and see some things differently. But they, their last schedule, they have 3 games left. That's why my math is killing me. So if they went 3-0, they would finish 7-11. Thank you, man. I ain't want to go out like like a psycho, but if they finish 3-0, they would finish 7-11, and that's pretty much out. Like I said, JSU has 4 games. If they lost all 4, they would be 6-12, and they would probably still be passed up by other people too. So, Pine Bluff, like I said, they mathematically still have a slight chance if a lot of teams lose and they win all their games, but it's not, that's not really something that I see happening. So they, like I said, they close out at home against Valley, then they go to Jackson and then Alcorn. Not an easy finish. You playing a Jackson State team who is very tough at home, and you playing an Alcorn team who's playing for a championship. And Valley, like I said, Valley can give you some trouble. So they could easily lose all 3 of these games or win 1 out of the 3, or even maybe win 2 out of 3. But that doesn't do them any favor. So right now, the the only difference I can see shaking up, if anything, would be flip flopping JSU and Alabama State. I don't really see anybody else dropping out unless Alabama State. I mean, excuse me, unless Alabama and them got cold and they lost out. They lost their they went 0-3 in their last 3 and finished 8-11. Or if Prairie View went 0-3 in their last 3 and went 8-11. And both of those things are possible. But if they went 0-11, I mean 8-11, Jackson State, finished 10-8, and Alabama State finished like 9-9. One of those teams probably would make it at 8-11, but that's a lot of movement. On the bottom, like I said, 6, 7, 8, 9 are the spots that I would really look at. 1 through 5, well, let's say 1 through 4 could easily finish with however you want to put them. Right now, I think TSU is in a good spot. Like I said, they're a half game ahead of everybody, and they do play Alcorn, so that helps them maybe make up some, make some space. But they cannot afford a tie with Southern or Alcorn if they want to win the conference outright. So they need to win out and hope Southern loses at least 1 game, and and then they will have a 1-game lead over Alcorn due to beating them. So if TSU wants to win the championship outright, they need to go 4-0 in their 3-0 in their last 4 games. Have Southern drop 1, and Alcorn will drop 1 because Texas Southern will beat them. They need to avoid ties with Southern and Alcorn through the tiebreakers. Alcorn, if they finish 14-4, they would win the conference pretty much. Even if Southern went 14-4 because they beat Southern, and they would have beat Texas Southern, who would have 5 losses at that point. So it's still a lot of movement. Like I said, this week, the games that I will keep my eyes out on are Texas Southern and JSU, Texas Southern and Alcorn, Alabama and Alabama State. That's a seeding game for the Bulldogs, especially. FAMU and Grambling, FAMU and Southern, Prairie View and Jackson, Prairie View and Alcorn. There's everybody in the top half, in the top 8 has a game against somebody that's very important in this weekend period. So a lot of I think there's gonna be some more movement, but again, I don't see a lot of crazy movement happening until the end of the season, the last weekend. I think it's gonna be very crazy, and we probably won't know most seeds until after the last weekend. So I would not really wrap up too much of this by this weekend. Like I said, first place has been a hot potato the last couple of weeks. So, TSU, if they could hold on and other people can lose, then they will find themselves with a nice spot and the number 1 seed and the NIT bid if they lost in the tournament. So that's pretty much where we stand, man. Like I said, this is pretty much all chaos and a whole lot of wild mass guessing. But I wanted to do it, man. I wanted to hop back on. Like I said before, I had a longer, pretty much the same length show now, but my mic was bad. Computer was acting stupid, so I wanted to hop on the live real quick and give y'all something. Because I always put, I always say I'm gonna have a show. If I say I'm gonna have a show, I'm gonna try to do my best to bring you a show. So I just wanted to pop on and do that for y'all. And tomorrow, SWAC Smoke as usual, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, gonna recap the Saturday games and take a smaller look at the standings. Next Wednesday, we'll do another deep dive into the standings. And then we'll start getting ready for the end of the season, man. Like I said, conference tournament starts on next Wednesday, on Wednesday, March 9th. So that's like 2 weeks from now. And the championship is Saturday, March 12th. So all games are in Birmingham. Top 8 go. Should be interesting, man. Should be a great ride. And I hope you guys are enjoying SWAC basketball. I think a lot of people are turning out at these games now, man. The atmospheres have been very, very good. I was really pushing hard early in the season for people to turn out, and people have been turning out. So, show these SWAC basketball players some love, man. They've been balling. Yanni Emmanuel, Alabama State, 41 points on Monday night. So that's a big time baller. 2 women's triple doubles this season. Don't miss SWAC basketball, man. Football is great. I love football, but basketball is doing that thing too. So with that being said, man, I'm about to hop on up off of here, and y'all enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow for SWAC Smoke, man. I'm out of here. Peace.